Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night, all of you adventurers and travelers within Isola Sacra. Welcome to Sacrament, and welcome to a guide that is going to help you understand crafting your items a little bit better. We're going to go over all of the different types of embers, the importance of Eleanor, and overall just kind of go over all the systems, especially with exalting, how voiding your items that are important, facets, all of that jazz. Timestamps will be below so you can look at the specific thing that might be intriguing you or what you're looking for. But without further ado, let's get into it, because it's a lot of information, but it's pretty compact, so I'm going to do my best to explain it as easily as I can. First of all, I'm going to talk about Eleanor, because she is the pinnacle of your importance until you start generating embers. And by importance, I mean what she vendors. So she is going to be responsible for selling you your int and faith-based wands and staves. But she'll also be responsible for giving you access to utility runes that you put into your utility slots, and these runes are separate away from your weapon slots, which is indicated down in the bottom right corner, or excuse me, bottom left corner. So when I hold R2 on the PS5 controller, it pulls up my Illuminate and my Return and my Heal Aura and things like that, so I can get these runes on the go and use them wherever, whenever. There's no restrictions, just so long as you have the focus cost to spend them. And then R1 is my weapons, and I don't have an L1, so there's nothing to have there. So going back to her, if you come to the rune section, you can see that you have, if you just hit triangle or on PlayStation, I believe it's Y on Xbox controller, it'll pull up the menu, and you can interchange these as you want. They don't get destroyed. So if I remove Scream, you just hit triangle, it pulls it out, it puts it back in your inventory. And then let's say I want Blink, I can put Teleport on there if I want, call it a day, move on. So this is where you'll buy these. Her vendor, just like every other vendor, restocks at 5 a.m. your time. So when I check her in a half hour, she will have a different inventory. But if I want to, I can snag some of these runes from her and then put them into my utility slots and go from there if I so chose to. You can also use her to get enchantments for your weapons, and this is also utility slot, so this won't take a weapon slot augment. So you can basically turn any weapon that you use into a plagued enchanted weapon. You can do this with fire, lightning, and cold as well. They all come with the attunement that you can do, plus the damage reductions. It just depends on if you get lucky with what she's selling, but also she sells better and more things the higher level you get her. So the sooner you get her to level 3, the better. You can also sell things to her. Be sure not to sell your junk, or else you're totally gonna want to uninstall the game. I had a buddy sell his weapon on accident. Make sure you know where and what is being highlighted before you sell it. That goes for all vendors. But the enchantment system, this is something I want to talk about. We're going to see if I get lucky with this. The enchantment system is used to basically say, am I going to get lucky? This indestructible piece of gear, will it get plagued with unrepairable, and will that be a great item? Or will it roll blue, and will I have to figure out how the build will change around it that way? Well, let's take a look. It rolls indestructible, and boom, it rolls a blue. Shame. All right, but we go through all of our gear to see if we get a plagued of any kind, and we don't. Okay, crazy. It doesn't always do that. Six strikes is crazy. So what would have happened there if we were lucky is it would turn a piece of gear into one of these as well. So it rolls blues, but it also has the chance to roll plagued items. So this is magical, this is plagued. That's the differentiation between the blue and the like red pink color that we get with the plagued. Now with those items, they come with different stats. Plagued items have 4 positives and 1 negative that can impact your build in a dramatic way. And blues come with only 3 enchantments, but they're all positives. The difference between plagued and blue items are the stats that can roll on them. And I'm going to show you guys the list of enchantments that you can get. This link will be down in the description below for anybody that's interested. But this basically just shows you that you have difference between magical gear. And I'm going to point out gloves because they're the big ones. But gloves here have 5 elemental status effects: ice, fire, lightning, fizz, and plague damage that you can do. And this is on a magical piece of gear. Now, if we go to gloves for the plagued gear, you can see that they have more than 5 here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different effects, which comes in the sense of you're doing burn, frost, infection, and shock on top of the other 5. So now you can get these, but this means that you have to choose between, do you want to deal more raw damage, or do you want to deal more build up, or have a status effect proc more actively, more quickly. Now you have to kind of play the line with your plagued piece of gear if this is the route you decide to take. And then with plague downsides, they have every single downside on here that you can get in a certain slot, so you can decide, oh, I'm never going to parry, so I hope I get a downside of parry disabled, because all I do is hold my shield up to block. Or I have an indestructible faceted piece of gear, meaning I want unrepairable on there because everything else would just be a direct negative, whereas this doesn't affect me whatsoever. And so with that, we come back to our gear and we can see clearly plagued, 5 negatives as 4 different categories, with the focus cost increased as the negative. All right. So what this means is I am going to have a harder time casting my rune-based abilities, but I get my damage boosted based off of the percentage of durability, meaning if this rolled a higher percent durability, it would be more than 100. So let's say durability was increased by 100% on this weapon, either due to the innate facet. So clumsy is the facet on this. And if you leave the menu and come back into your inventory, you'll be able to see what facets do. And you'll notice that on some of these pieces of gear, you don't have facets like this one. So this one, you can see it is durable. It has durability increased and focus gain reduced. Well, for a wand, I'm only using this because it does damage and I haven't found anything better or crafted anything better. So clearly I want focus gain increased, and durability is doing nothing for me. So this item in it of itself is garbage. But when we come over to this dried hive staff, it's missing an enchantment, plus it doesn't have a facet. So I clearly want to look for a better plagued upgrade if this is what I've got, because I could still get a facet on it and have more damage, utility, whatever it might be, like this sword. This sword rolled Razor as its facet, and you can see that right here. That's what this stat right here is, and what the box that pops out over here is for. And it tells you what it does. Critical strike chance increased, but the durability is reduced. So you'll notice that this only has a durability of 50, meaning that it goes from 100 down to 50, meaning it takes a 50% decrease in durability. But with this, I now have an item that I can mess around with. The focus cost goes up. I don't really care about using the focus abilities. I'm just trying to use it to smack somebody around every once in a while if I feel like changing up my playstyle from wands and staffs to sword. Totally up to you on how you're going to play. There clearly is a plethora of weapons for you to do something with that will fit your playstyle. But that kind of goes over the difference between magic and plagued gear, how to get magic and plagued gear when using Eleanor, the stats, and of course the spreadsheet will be in the description below, so y'all will have access to that readily available. And also to explain what facets are. Facets can be crafted in the sense like this item, I created this item by using an anvil. At the anvil, I created one sword and it rolled a facet on it. Whereas a couple of wands that I created did not roll facets on them. As well as some of the cloth gear that I rolled. Some rolled facets, some didn't. Speculation is that facets are higher chances to roll on gear that is considered endgame, meaning when you craft it, it has this item level of 9 and the item level is right here. So when this is a 9, it will either craft at level 9 or higher, and when it does so, it has a chance to roll a facet. Now, some people have reported rolling really low level weapons like 1s and 4s and not getting a single facet in the entirety of going through their items. So up to your discretion on how many mats you want to waste on an item if it's potentially not going to roll it and you're only going to be able to roll facets. Granted, this will boil down to RNG. This will boil down to if the developers decide to bolster the stats of rolling facets on gear when you're actually crafting, things like that. So just know that you can craft gear with facets on it, but it seems like you'll have a better chance doing it with quote unquote elite level gear that's already level 9 versus gear that's lower level. And what I say by elite level gear is I mean gear that whenever you're looking in the menu here, like I said, starts at level 9. I'm not at a thing to show you, but there is a little flag that will sit down here and will tell you basically the tier of the item that you're looking at. So like Fine Racks is a tier 3 item, which means that it's going to be a higher level to learn it than a tier 1 rack of a simple, right here, a simple tanning rack versus a fine tanning rack, which is tier 3. The same thing goes for gear. There's higher levels and lower level gear that you can learn, and it can lead to potentially not getting those facets on your gear. So just know that that is doable, but you'll most likely just have to find pieces of gear that have your facets on it, especially for the one that you want. Like Keen, crit chance increased, poise damage reduced. Okay, I don't care about poise damage. Everything seems to be super poise like strong in this patch, so poise damage doesn't really matter. Give me the crit chance. I'll take that. Keen's awesome. Durability increased, focus gain decreased. All right, I'm going to use this from a like ranger standpoint where I'm using more dex than intelligence, and I'm going to try and just use it to deal raw damage. And then I'm going to look for stats that bolster damage and attack speed based off of durability. Things like that. So now when you get double durability rolls on an item that rolls durable, now your durability is really scaling high. We could get some crazy combos with this. And different items that come with different things. Frigid gains ice infusion, but the raw damage of the weapon is lowered. All right, not bad. But that is just an example of all of the different kinds of things you can get. Damage increased, attack speed reduced. The trade-offs that you can get between a lot of these items depending on how they scale, what you're looking for, all of that jazz. All right, so now let's talk about a system outside of Eleanor. So we already talked about Eleanor's enchant system. Let's talk about her infusion system as well real quick. So infusion means adding a gem to your weapons. These gems can be removed from the item, but just know that you will destroy the item. So let me get rid of a piece of gear that I don't care to lose. Like this doesn't have any stats on it that I want, and I don't care about losing the frigid. So let's say I imprint this plague damage gem on there. This is permanent, and the gem cannot be extracted without destroying the item. All right, cool. So let's say the Kopesh runs its duration of its life. I find something super GG better. All right, cool. Well, if you hit triangle and extract, then it brings up a little tiny prompt. It's just a bunch of gray lines over the gem. And you hit triangle and then X, and it will remove the gem, but destroy the item. So now I have my gem back, but the item is gone forever. So just understand that if you remove the gem from a piece of gear, you will lose the piece of gear. Now, I believe you can clear the gem, so we're going to do this from a piece of gear. Yeah, so if you hit square and then destroy, I don't really care if I hold on to this, so I'm just going to destroy it. It deletes the gem, but you keep your item. So make sure that you pay attention to which button you press. If you're not sure, make sure you double check. It never hurts. But you put the item in, and then you hit square and then X and it will destroy the gem inside, or you hit triangle and then X and it will remove the gem but destroy the item. So there's that. And then runing things. I don't have any runes to put in weapons and stuff, but this is where you would go to put in specific weapon runes. Whenever you remove a rune, though, you need to understand that that rune can only go on certain items, whether it's the same class. So like if I remove this circular, I don't really care about any of the stats on here, so I'll show you what this looks like. So you hit triangle to extract, it removes it, and now if I want to, I can click on X and I can add a rune from here. It tells me how much it costs, it tells me what the ability does, it tells me that this can also only go onto a one-handed weapon, which is a very wide variety of weapons, but this means that you cannot put this on a two-handed club or a two-handed sword. If it starts with two-handed, you can't do it, plain and simple. But that's the entire system. You can remove runes from weapons that you like and put them on weapons that you want to try out if you want to as well. Let's say you want to use this etched yet again, but you don't like slashing pirouette. You can hit R2 to destroy, and it will remove that rune and destroy it completely, cleaning the weapon, and now I can put circular in place. So this is how you get rid of runes without screwing your weapon up and getting the ones specifically the way that you want it. These are interchangeable at any time to my knowledge, so you can change with ease and try out new things and test new combinations, stick with the good ones, test out unfamiliar ones on one button, so you can have 3 that you want to keep on your weapon at all times, enchantments that you want on here, and then one really big spender for hard hitting, things like that. The combinations are endless, and the ability, the interchangeability of the abilities themselves is quite peak. So feel free to experiment and other stuff like that, because the system is highly customizable and tailored to your experience and what you want from it. So be sure to pay attention to that. But that goes over all of Eleanor. Now let's go over Embers. So Embers are new to this version of the game. The only thing that we had before was Fallen Embers, and what this does, and I will show each and every one of these, I'm actually going to show you what a Void Ember does, is when you use this, you can entirely clean, basically scrub an item minus the facet and the runes in the weapon. So if you have messed with an item, then but you're like, oh man, I didn't want that, I want something else, like where did that there was a faceted piece of gear that we had earlier, where did it go? Maybe I put it away. Oh no, it's right here. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So let's say for this mesh body armor, I'm just gonna take one more quick look. Oh no, right here, it was this helm. So I'm gonna clear this helm. So the Void Ember, when you use it, it turns that item back into a gray item. And what this means is now this gray item is available for me to manipulate how I want to. Because it rolled the Indestructible facet, I want to put Plagued on there. So I'm going to use a Corrupting Ember and turn it into a Plagued item instead. Now we can see if we got lucky with how it rolled. It rolled damage resistance reduced by a percentage. Shame, womp womp. But what this means now is I can, the way that my character works, I can just take these embers that we got, this Fallen Ember, and I want to re-roll that stat to see if I can't hit Unrepairable. And we get health drain in combat, Sag. And I have a couple more that I could spend, but for instruction purposes, we're not gonna waste them. But I do have an example here of the Indestructible Unrepairable combo. It is a lot rarer to get, and because of the facet system, this actually relieves pressure on the necessity to roll Indestructible on your gear, since you can find it innately on there. So big brain, super epic move from Moon Studios. I hope this stays in, because this is still a very desired combo, especially with how rare embers are right now. But this is the result of using the void ember, turning it into a regular ember or a regular item, and then using a corrupting ember and turning it into a plagued item. Now I'll show you another item. Let's take this mystic item for example, because mystic items make it so that way you have less stamina regen, but you gen more focus. So meaning the more mystic you stack, the more focus gain you'll get, but you want to make sure you don't stack your regen too high, or else your stamina takes forever to recharge. So be careful about that. But in doing that, we void it down. It now goes back down to a gray piece of gear. Well, now I'm going to use an awakening ember, and this will allow me to change it into a blue item. So now we have changed it into a blue item. It rolled increased durability loss ignored, and poise defense increased. This is a big body armor with a lot of focus gain and very little stamina regen, but it also has a gem slot open, so we can also infuse it if we want to. This item, all intents and purposes, not too bad. It could be better. It rolled on the poise defense and the durability loss because you don't want to die, but if you do, it's okay. Especially if you're not playing hardcore. If you're playing hardcore, don't die. For the love of God, don't die. But yeah, so that is what those embers do. And this is going to give you a little bit more utility around how to use your items and what you want to set up for them. Now, the one thing that I want to talk about are these guys, Essence Embers. Because Essence Embers allow you to remove an entire stat from a piece of gear, destroying it in the process, but allows you to take that stat and put it on another piece of gear of your choosing. And you can do this as many times as you want, so long as you take the right power and put it on the corresponding piece of gear, and so long as it doesn't conflict with any other slots. What I mean by that is with like this. I removed execute infected low health enemies on damage dealt, and this came from a plagued item, and it came from the glove slot, meaning I can only put this specific power on the slot of a infected on a plagued glove item, meaning that I could only put them on this. Now, let's say I did want to put that on an item, I would use it. And then this is a good example. This item already rolled execute infected low health enemies on damage dealt. If I hit X on this, you then get to replace whatever stat you want, but because there's already one of this stat there, it won't let you apply it. So it'll tell you, hey, you can't do that. And the reason why is because A, the stat is already on it, but B, you cannot have two stats from the same category, and both of these come from the offensive stat, meaning this is big utility. You don't want, nor can you basically double dip on damage. So they did this as a way to kind of make sure that you had to pick and choose. What do you want more? Do you want shock buildup, or do you want infected low enemies? Do you want fire damage, or do you want burn damage? Things like that. So that is basically what the Essence Embers do. They turn into charged embers with the specific stat. If it's blue, that means it can only go on a magic item of the slot that's there. And if it's red, then it means it can only go on a plagued piece of gear in the slot that's specific to where it goes. Plus, you can't have conflicting slots as well. So like, if I tried to do the blue on a focus slot, I couldn't do gain focus as well as the focus stat as well, because if you look at it, you can see max focus increased by 20%. It has the focus symbol. This means that I cannot have on this piece of gear, I cannot have two slots with the I for focus because they conflict. You either have to, and I'll show you here, but this means that they go either or. So we're looking at a blue helm and right here. So focus is your target. The one that we looked at is you gen focus. So generate focus in combat is what that stat is. But then you also have max focus increased by that 20%. So that means our power is almost max, but these stats can't exist on the same item at once. So I would have to replace the regen focus in combat on the item in order to get a slot in this aspect, or try and take one from any of the other slots that aren't on there and try and do that. The only what is it called? The only where did that blue chest go? I think the only rule that breaks, or not breaks, but the only exception to the rule is the, wow, this is the craziest thing I could actually show you, is that when you look at an item like the one that we have right there, so you can see the 3 stats that we have: durability lost with a % chance, durability lost with a % chance, durability %, and durability increase, or excuse me, poise defense increased. So as you can see, it's kind of crazy that we rolled this so I could give this attention, is that if it rolls in the miscellaneous stat, any of or all of these stats could be on an item. Now, I don't know if this is a bug. I haven't gotten an item like this before that I paid attention to. So if you guys test anything, let me know down in the comments below about these pieces of gear, if you guys are getting similar results, or if this is just a 1 in a billion thing that happened. But last I checked, you can get at least 2 of these. This is the only rule that doesn't follow the you can only have 1 of each stat. Because you can have multiple from here, like durability lost, decreased, or weight reduced and durability increased, things like that. So I know at least 2 can roll, but all 3 I've never actually seen, so I don't know about that. But if anybody comes up with anything, please let me know. But yeah, so that covers Fallen Embers, Corrupting Embers, Void Embers, Awakening Embers, Essence Embers, and the charged Essence Embers they become. Now let's talk about Radiant Embers. So Radiant Embers, when you use them, will allow you to boost the stat of an item up by 15% of whatever that stat can increase by. So what that means is, like this ring right here, if I hit X on this, I can see that an 81 from 81% to 96%, this ring is going to gain 2% focus gain, which means that I can only, every time I use this, so up till 100%, that means this ring at max focus gain increased goes to 25% at the max roll. And the only way you'll know that is if you use these all the way up to the top, which this one I would have to do twice, so that way I got the 25% focus gain. Any little bit of focus you can get, the better. And then on this one, I can see from a 58% to 73%, which is a 15% increase. It goes from 35 to 41%. So 15% increase on using one of these Radiant Embers, but it only makes the total go up by 6%. So just know that these items can be used to perfect an item. They cannot affect the downsides of plagued items. Downsides on plagued items, and I don't know if this is something that's going to get changed in the future or not, but this only affects the positives that can go up and up, and I think it's because they're only programmed to push things up, not put things down. So maybe this will change in the future. As it works right now, you only get to bolster positive affixes on any piece of gear, and you can do this all the way up until it's 100%. Once you get an item to 100%, you cannot enchant an item any farther. Now, the next thing that we've got is Exalting. Now, the symbols for this Exalting, there are 2 different systems in the game with which you can engage that allow you to exalt your gear. The first one being up in the Rookery. If you talk to the Scholar and their names are spacing me, Roan, if you talk to the Watcher and Roan up in the tower, here you can exchange, and I don't have any plagued areas, but you can exchange the plagued currency, the torn husks, the torn sinew, the torn you get what I'm talking about, the torn materials. You take those to them and you upgrade with them. In doing so, it allows you to get gear that looks like this. Now, this piece of gear is garbage. I'm not using it. I'm just using it for an example. But is it horrible? By no means, no. It's actually serviceable. It just doesn't have a facet, which makes it kind of poo-poo. Because you're missing out on just raw stats, whether or not it's durability increase, indestructible, certain like extra armor, poise armor up, things like that. You're just missing that, like with other pieces of gear like dense armor increased, weight increased. Oh man, okay, cool. But as you can see, there are 4 nodules on this item, meaning those 4 dots is how many times you've exalted this item, meaning you have spent 4 upgrades worth of materials to turn this item into an exalted piece of gear. And when you do that, the stats that get hit, so it hit damage increased by 15% and stamina recovery increased. It hit those stats twice per stat. So it hit damage increase, then it hit stamina recovery, then it hit damage increase, and then stamina recovery. And that was my 4 upgrades to turn this piece of gear from a normal Joe Schmo piece of gear into an exalted piece of gear. Now, you will find things, and I think I had an item in here that showed what a piece of gear looked like with just 1 exalt on it. Yeah, right here. This is what 1 level of exalting your gear looks like. So as you can see, there's 4 little like dark loops right there. You can see these 4 loops right here. One has a bright shiny gold symbol, and then there's 3 empty slots, meaning you can exalt this item 3 more times. Now what that means is, if we're going based off of the systems that I showed you, this is the second Exalt system that doesn't revolve around the Husk system. And this is the Sublime Ember. The Sublime Ember, once you use it on an item, you can't change its equipments. And I assume this means the same thing with Exalting as well. I think they just need to change. I think the description of Exalting needs to be added to this. Once a Sublime Ember is used on an item or it's exalted, it can no longer have its enchantments replaced. So that way, when you're either at the Watcher or here, you understand that once you do this to an item, you can't change it until you void it and start over. So now you take this and you can just hit this and boom, it hit damaged increased over current durability. So now that stat has been exalted, and it can technically keep climbing higher and higher and higher. It just depends on how high you've pushed it with the Radiant Embers. If you got that 100%, then you could get it to go up even higher and higher and higher. I want to say this pushes a stat up by 15, anywhere between 15 to 25%. Don't know the exact math yet. There probably was something about it in the patch notes we'll look at. I'll also plug those down below as well. But that pretty much covers crafting items of your own, the importance of Eleanor, the systems and the services that she offers, how you can have independence over your own gear, your utility slots, your weapon slots, the gear that you craft and make, facets, everything. And I know it's a mouthful. I know this is a long video. I do apologize. But I do feel like it's a lot of really cohesive and straightforward information to help you guys learn and play the game to the highest level that you can. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave a like, leave a comment on the video. I try to respond to every comment that I can. If it's a far away comment, I apologize. I'm not trying to ignore you, I promise, but do try and leave a comment below, especially if this helped you. Share it with your friends. This will be a part of my Discord. Stop by. We're live on Twitch pretty much 24/7. I do a lot of ARPGs. I do like Diablo 2 and 4, and we love trying out all the new ARPGs that are hitting the market and stuff. But we also do some variety as well. So if that's your guys' cup of tea, or you're just trying to figure out some things about No Rest for the Wicked, this is my content, baby. So please come and stop in and ask me any questions. I try to learn everything I can to the best of my ability. And if I don't know, then we will look it up together. But y'all take care of yourselves. Be safe. thank you for tuning in for this episode of No Rest for the Wicked. I look forward to this game's development more and more, especially with each coming patch. So far to me, co-op together, No Rest for the Wicked together is by far one of the best patches this game has introduced thus far, and I hope Thomas and team at Moon Studios continues to keep cooking, because this game is amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for everybody watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace.